Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to another exciting episode of Psychology Talks. And I'm your host, Amreen Nadeem. And this is the show where we explore science of human behavior, leadership, and the mindset that shape extraordinary impact. And this is the first episode of the 2026. So, though, to a very happy new year to all those listeners and audience who are tuning in to Psychology Talks. And wishing you a very, very happy new year. And I hope that all your goals and wishes come true in this year. So, anyway, let's start our show. And I'm so honored to be joined by Jeff Kerr, the author of Adam Cash Mystery Series. And he brings a rare, compelling perspective shaped by career that began with a pediatric neurosurgery and evolved into fiction writing. His journey offers valuable insights into human behavior, storytelling, and what it truly means to market a book with intention. So let's dive in and talk about that, how the marketing part works just after writing the book, because most of the authors feel that they're done when they're done with writing a book, but their actually task begins when they publish the book, because major task is marketing a book. So we'll also talk about marketing. We'll talk about how authors need to uh, focus on the details of writing and authorship journey. Anyways, we'll talk a lot about it. So let's welcome Jeff. Thank you so much for joining today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Umbreen. This is fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and hi, Valerie. Thank you for connecting us. It's definitely, it's really good to have you. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, Jeff, actually, I gave a very, very brief introduction about you, that you started your journey with neurosurgery and then came into the field of writing, and especially this very niche genre of crime fiction. So tell us about your journey, that how you started your journey in especially healthcare, medicine, and how you came into in writing.
Sure. Years ago, when I was young and going off to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had always enjoyed writing, but I never was thinking of it in terms of a career back then. I
Mhm.
actually enjoyed history enough that I signed up to be a history major during my freshman year. But then I came home to have dinner with my family and told my mother that, and she had this horrified look of on her face, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you're going to starve." Um,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
scared me enough that eventually I ended up in engineering, and then
Mhm.
beyond that, decided to go into medicine. Um,
Mhm.
and then I sort of set aside history and writing and all thoughts of that for quite a number of years because the training was pretty intense. But about 22, 23 years ago, living here in Austin, I became interested in local history. I heard a story about before the town was founded. A man named Mirabeau Lamar came here and he participated in a buffalo hunt, and he shot the biggest buffalo any of them had ever seen at what is now
Mhm.
in Congress in Austin, downtown Austin. And that
Mhm.
fascinated me enough that I started looking up old pictures of the city and then going around town and taking my own pictures to compare the before and after. Uh,
Mhm.
and I would come home and tell my family about this. My kids were young. I have a daughter and a son. And my son, who was around 12, 13 at the time, grew
Mhm.
impatient enough one night that he put down his fork and said, "Dad, that's enough. Write a book."
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, I should write a book. And that's
Mhm.
really how this whole thing got kicked off for me. I didn't know
Mhm.
what to do. This is before the age of digital books. So, I had no idea how to go about doing this. But a friend put me in touch with somebody who did know how to do that. And she guided me through it. And eventually I wrote this book called Austin, Texas, Then and Now. This came out in 2004.
Mhm.
I pretty quickly realized that and the scary part of this was I had to pay what was a lot of money for me to get the rights to use all the photographs that I was using, and then to have these books actually printed. There were only physical books back then. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
So I had a garage full of books, and I had to sell them. And so I
Mhm.
schlepping these books around town. There's a lot of museums and various historical sites here in town. They were glad to put these books in their gift shops. And then I started putting myself out there calling Rotary clubs and Lions clubs and other civic organizations to see if they would want me to come talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
So in the old days, that's how you did it. Is you went out yourself and you met people, either through book signings or going to give talks, maybe sitting in a bookstore and waiting for people to come by and chat with you. And that's how I started out. And my first 3 books were nonfiction. They were all about local Austin history. And the last one that came out was in 2013. I'm very proud of this book. It actually won an award by the Sons of the Republic of Texas as being the best book about the Republic of Texas that was published that year. But it took an intense amount of research for about 2 years. If I wasn't at my job, my medicine job, I was in the library somewhere doing research. And I enjoyed that, but it took a lot out of me. And I realized I can't keep doing that. Unlike a history professor at the University of Texas, I don't have a bunch of students that I can say, hey, go over to the library and find all these things for me. But I knew I wanted to keep writing. So I next wrote a novel, historical fiction based on the story of Austin's founding, which was very closely related to the fiction book I'd written. And from there, again, I realized I wanted to keep writing. And at one of my talks one time on Austin history, a man came up to me afterwards and he said, you know, Dr. Kerr, Texas has the right to secede from the United States. Well, in my mind, that issue was settled in the 19th century with the Civil War, the bloodiest war in our history. But I got to thinking about it, and it seemed kind of funny to me. So I wrote a novel, a political farce called The Republic of Jack, with that premise that Texas left the Union. Well, this is by then digital books were a thing.
Yeah.
Digital marketing was a thing, but I didn't know anything about it. So I put this book out there. I let a bunch of my friends know about it. Maybe a handful of them read it, but nobody else did. It ended up with, probably still has about 5 reviews on Amazon. You can still get it. Nobody's buying it. And I realized, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need to figure out how to become better known. Because even if you write the best book in the world, if nobody knows about it, they're not going to read it.
Yeah.
So, and then I thought, well, I need to pick a genre. I want to keep writing. It's going to be fiction, and I wanted to pick a genre that I enjoyed. I've always enjoyed spy thrillers and political thrillers and things like that. So the next book I wrote was called Refuge, and it's kind of speculative fiction set in the near future about a woman who comes into the United States illegally and ends up being chased by the FBI, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But at that time also, I started trying to think in terms of how do I market this thing? I noticed one of the things that you mentioned in the note you sent me was, what do you tell authors who feel overwhelmed by that process of trying to market their book? And that is exactly how I felt. It just seemed like there was so much to know, and I knew nothing, and I didn't even know where to start. But I ended up finding an online course in advertising for authors and self-publishing that I found very helpful. And I realized, and at the same time, I contacted a self-published author that I admired, whose books I enjoyed, and asked, hey, what do you do when you start now? He was very kind. He wrote back. His name was Jeff Carson. He was very nice and wrote back a nice note. And he said, and I think this is really important, just understand that you're in it for the long haul. You're not going to become an instant success. Your first book is not going to do well. Your second book probably won't do much better. The third and the fourth, it's only as you keep putting books out there and learning your craft and learning how to market them that you become successful. And he told me it took him 5 books before he could quit his day job and make a living as an author. And he now has, 25 books out there. And he's doing well. So that's what I learned. It's not going to happen all at once, and I don't need to become good at everything all at once. But if I could just break it down into its components and focus on this for a while, then that for a while, it felt more manageable then. And I'm by no means an expert on marketing. I have not yet the big time, but I'm chipping away at it, and I've learned a lot, and I know a lot by now. So after Refuge, and it didn't do great, but it certainly did better than the political farce.
Mhm.
Um, that was not a book that was really set up for a sequel. So I needed to start thinking in terms of something else. And the other piece of advice that this author, Jeff Carson, gave me that I think is excellent was you need to write a series,
Oh,
because
yeah.
you want to hook people with your first book, and then you want them coming back for more. You want them
Mhm.
salivating for the next book as they finish the first one.
Mhm.
So that's when I started, got back to the old maxim, well, write what you know. Well, I live here in Texas.
Mhm.
I've always enjoyed crime fiction. Some of my favorite
Mhm.
shows and books that I've read are in that genre. And
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time. I didn't want to set it in a big city because that seemed too, I know too little about crime fiction, and crime fighting in big cities. But I thought it would be more manageable for me to learn about it in a small town. And my wife and I spend a lot of time in a town called Blanco, which is about an hour west of here, a very small town, about 1,600 people. Uh,
Mhm.
and I went out and talked to the sheriff out there, and he gave me
Oh.
pointers. And I realized, yeah, I can start doing this. I can.
Mhm.
And so I wrote the first book. Um, and with using the marketing techniques I had learned, it did, it did okay. I still lost money on it, but it was better than Refuge. And with each book since then, and I've now got 4 of those books in that series out there. Each one has done better. The 5th book
Mhm.
is coming out next month, and last
Wow.
April, I signed with a company called Vinci Books.
Mhm.
It's not a traditional big house publishing firm, but they specialize in finding independent authors like myself for the book series that they then can use their marketing skills for. So
Yeah.
that's where I am now, and that's how I got to this point.
Wow, that's an amazing journey. And what I see is that your passion was always writing, right? That you followed that part of the medicine, which is, of course, you may be like, it was meant to be your career, but I think your passion lied for writing. And that's what you actually found out. And I think that's what you're good at. And I think that you will have more success to go when you write more novels and when you write more books. There's one question here. They actually say, they smile, that share some steps to increase sale. So, what would you say that? What would you advise that how authors today can increase their sales? Just to give you a little bit like connecting your conversation, as you said that prior to digital books, you used to have these physical bookstores, and you can have some like talks over there. So, do you think that it is also relevant today, also, or it's just, or there's a completely different dynamics today?
I think there's some similarities and some differences. I've heard over and over at various conferences I've gone to and books that I've read that it's a mistake to focus just on trying to maximize sales. And the way
Mm,
you do that, the way you get more sales is by getting more people involved in your community, basically. So you need to
mhm,
build a platform of followers, and you need to give your followers more than just the next book to buy. You need to
yeah.
give them the experience of interacting with the author and
Mhm,
trading stories and so forth. So when I first started writing the Adam Cash series, I had 10 followers that followed my newsletters. And I started writing short stories that I would then give away in exchange for email addresses. And
mhm,
since then, over the past 3 years, I've had 7,500 people download a free short story. About half of those end up unsubscribing down the road. But I
mhm,
built this following of several thousand people, and I try to interact with them as much as possible through the emails that I send out and then answer their emails that they send me.
mhm,
And those are the folks that are buying my books right now. And so I think
mhm.
first order of business is really to build a following and develop a community that people want to come to.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I mean, there's lots and lots of tips on advertising and so forth. I think there's no easy answer to how to increase sales. A lot of it
Mhm,
depends on genre, where you're trying to increase your sales. These days, most authors that are self-published are trying to go through Amazon, and
mhm.
it's a moving target, especially with AI over the past year or two. Things have changed tremendously in how you go about trying to advertise your books. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'll stop. See, that's not a great answer, but there is no simple answer to how do I increase sales. I would say
Yeah.
if you want to simplify it, get people to follow you and be interested in what you're doing so that they're going to want that next book when it comes out.
Yeah, I think that's very true that there is no one formula fits everything, because there are uh, like first of all, as you said, that you need to have certain community. Like people should know you, at least that you are an author, so at least they can buy a book. And then there are lots of things as now, like initially there used to be only physical stores, so people used to go to the physical store and buy books. And now there are so much, I would say, noise uh, in the current era, that they have lots of information from about the books, let's say, or about everything that is available on fingertips. And it is so important, as for marketing perspective, that you need to gain the top of the mind share of your readers. If you lose that, then definitely there is very less chances that your reader will go, or your audience will go and buy the book. So there is I would say lots and lots of effort required to do the marketing. It's not just one thing. It's not just that I would just say that focus on one, maybe digital platform, or one social media platform, or anything of this. Like it's a mix of everything. So I can relate, because that's what, like when I was doing marketing for my book, lots and lots of things were involved. So I think, like, yeah, Valerie is asking that how will you subscribe to your newsletters for updates? So I think, like, I'm running this ticker down there. This is your website. I think this is the way we can subscribe to your updates,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there's a spot on my website where you can sign up. You receive a copy of some of the short stories in exchange for entering your email, and you'll be getting my newsletter.
Hmm. And she's also asking that, what are your thoughts on newsletters for authors?
Well, there's lots of different aspects that you got to think about there. How often do you send out newsletters? That's the first question a lot of people ask.
Mhm.
And the answers I generally see and what I follow is you don't want to wait too long because they forget who you are, but you don't want to bombard them with so many emails that they get sick of you and unsubscribe, or even worse, report you as spam, because that'll hurt you in the long run too. So I try to get at least one out a month and no more than 3. And I generally send them out when I've got an announcement to make about something that I'm doing, or if I'm participating in a new giveaway promotion with my short stories. Or maybe I went to a conference, or met an author that I think they'd be interested in. I want something to make the newsletter valuable to them when they open it. Like, oh, I'm glad I opened this because I wouldn't have known this otherwise.
Yeah.
And I also try to include stories about how I write the books and stories about my life too that are, usually I try to make them somewhat humorous and then also relate them to the characters in my books.
Yeah, I think that's a very good answer, and I'm sure that Valerie must have found the answer. So I want to ask this very interesting question: that when you decided about this, you want to become an author. What do you think? What was the surprising thing that you found out about being an author and about publishing the book and writing the process that you had not anticipated before?
Well, probably the hardest lesson I learned early on was that no matter how good your book is, it doesn't matter if nobody knows who you are. And I found this out. My first book, Austin, Texas, Then and Now, it was very well received. People loved it. I mean, the thing practically sold itself because people love Austin history. And I submitted it to the Texas Book Festival, which is a big deal. And I was very excited. I thought my chances of getting in were quite good. But it was not accepted. And the reason was, first of all, it was self-published and they didn't want self-published books. And second of all, who was Jeff Kerr? Nobody knew who I was. So they wanted people with names that other people recognized, so they would want to come to the festival. And that was a hard lesson to learn, but now I understand that. If nobody has heard of you, then they're not gonna come listen to you at a festival. So that was a tough lesson.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a lesson most of the author gets, because as I was actually giving the introduction about this episode, that lots of author, what they think is that writing the book is the only thing. And it was my goal also a long time back when I wanted to write a book. But then I realized that it's not enough. Like writing a book is just a little part of what you want
Yeah,
is, because of course when we write, we want someone to read it. It's not something that we write for ourselves. When we publish a book, we want someone to read it, because that's how we create an impact in the world. This is our idea, that we want people to read, and what they want to know, that that's what is our story of what is our idea, and that's how maybe it can help them improve their life. So the first thing is that they need to work upon, like the moment they finish writing. Of course, the book should be really good. It's not something that they need to just
absolutely. Yeah.
focus on the marketing part. The product or the book itself needs to be extraordinary. Once that part is done, then this part is, it should never be omitted, because that is the right thing, that you need to reach out uh, to your readers or to your audience in a right way, which they feel that if the book resonate with them, or they can they like this. So anyways, this is something that even I learned it, and it was really tough part, because what, as an author, our passion is writing, not the marketing part, but
Right.
it is actually tagged along, and we cannot escape it. We have to do it. We need to learn lots of things. Like I even this podcast is part of my authorship journey, because
Yeah.
that's how I
Yeah.
thought that we can actually say about our book, or create some impact in the world, because at the end of the day, it's all about sharing knowledge.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And I
yeah.
think podcasts are a great way to do that. I think it's more natural for nonfiction writers like yourself to do that, and Valerie is doing that as well.
Mm, yeah.
But it's a great way to build that community of people that are going to want to read what you wrote.
Mm,
The other
yeah.
thing I learned early on is that, of course, you want to write an excellent book, but no matter how good you think it is, no matter how many times you read it and have eliminated everything wrong with it that you see, there's things that could make it better. And
Mm,
um, you don't write a good book by yourself. You have to have good
yes.
editors. And I learned
Yeah.
that pretty quick. I was lucky to find a very good editor, an excellent editor that I used for my book, my Adam Cash series. And I
Mm,
was stunned with the first book when I sent it to him and got all this stuff back that needed changing. I was feeling depressed about that. And oh my gosh, well, no, he's wrong about this, that, and the other. But I learned, no matter how wrong you think the suggestion is from the editor, give it some thought. And nine
yeah.
times out of 10, I'll end up agreeing with him. And I
Yeah.
was shocked at how much better the book was when I went and made all the changes that he suggested.
Yes, that's very true. I think that's one part that self-publisher actually omit very easily, the editor part, because, and especially nowadays, ChatGPT made it very easy. A lot of people actually rely on this. Oh my God, they can do it themselves, but that part should never be compromised, because if your book is not edited well, it will not, I would say, resonate, or somehow it will not create that kind of impact on the reader's mind,
Well, and
because
not
they
only that, but
yeah.
whatever word of mouth that you get is going to be bad word of mouth. So they're going to go out and tell people, don't read that guy's book.
Yes, that's the worst case scenario, that you have that kind of thing. So anyways, yeah, the other question that is coming to my mind is, like, you had the passion, like you had the career in medicine, but you had the passion for writing, and there are several people out there, like they are more passionate about writing, and a lot of people, like 80% of the people, I don't know, I read this some survey somewhere, that the 80% of the people have this passion of publishing a book or writing or something, but only 1% or 2% are ended up doing that, because either they think that it is not for them, or it's too tedious, and there's so much work required. So since you changed the career also in a way, that you were in a medicine and then you followed your passion, so what do you think, what advice would you give to all those people that who have this passion, but they may be not in the moment to pursue their to this passion?
Well, if it's something that you love to do, then you'll find a way to do it. I guess.
Yeah.
Even if you have a full-time job, which I did for most, for at least 15 years, I was working as a full-time physician while I was also writing books,
Yeah.
which was at times frustrating because I wanted to spend my time on a book I was excited about, but had to get up and go to work.
Yeah.
So, um, but even then, even the busiest times at work, I would still find some time somewhere to sit down and work on whatever book was in my mind. And that's where I learned that you got to be patient. You're not going to finish it in a week or a month. It's going to take a long time, and that's okay. It's not a race. I'm fortunate in that I developed this passion for writing because I was 65 when I retired from medicine, and I had a great career. It was very fulfilling, but I was ready to stop. I was ready for something different in life.
Mm-hmm.
You meet those physicians that work until they're 100. I wasn't that guy. I liked it. I loved it. I loved it in a lot of ways, but I was ready to stop at age 65. So I'm very fortunate that I have this as something that I enjoy doing, because if I didn't, I'd be struggling. I'd be struggling in retirement.
Yes, yes. And I think that I love that when you mentioned that if you have the passion, it will find a way. So if you are passionate about, so definitely, definitely, you will find a way that how to write a book or how to publish a book. So I also want to ask that you actually started writing a book, like it started with a fiction or non-fiction, and then you came to the fiction. So did you have any coach or somewhere you had some guidance? How do you actually it started with this, like fiction, non-fiction, and then fiction?
Well, I two inspirational sources there. One was when my son made that smart aleck remark that I should write a book, and I decided to do it. I ended up meeting a woman named Kathleen Niendorf, who is in the publishing industry, and she works as an agent for various nonfiction authors and knows a lot about it. And she guided me through that first book and has really been my mentor ever since. So I could not have done it. I wouldn't have been able to start without somebody like her to say, okay, here's what you need to do. And then I would go out and do it. And she'd say, okay, that's great. Now you need to take these next steps. And that was a tremendous help. And it gave me a lot of confidence to go ahead and keep doing this. And then when I was going to wanted to start writing fiction, I was kind of discouraged with that as well. I mean, how am I going to find readers, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I started reading and listening to the books by this author named Jeff Carson, who writes a series a little bit similar to what I'm writing. And I just found it very inspirational as to what he's done. He had another career. I don't know exactly what it was, but he didn't start out as an author, but he realized he wanted to become one. And he had a young family to feed. I'm lucky in that I'm old and retired, and I have other resources right now. I don't have to rely on money from writing to survive. But as I mentioned, I wrote him a letter, and he wrote me back and outlined the steps that he had taken that worked for him. And I realized, okay, well, it can be done. A lot of people get frustrated and give up, but here's one guy that didn't, and it so it can be done. And I still remind myself of that cautionary note he put in there. Is that you're in it for the long haul. So so what if the last book didn't do that great? That's okay, because you're going to do another one. And again, I love writing enough that I never find it work. And if you find that you're not wanting to sit down and write because it's too hard and you don't enjoy it, then go play golf or something. Find something else to do.
Absolutely, that's very true. That if you're not passionate, then writing isn't for you. That's because otherwise it gets really, really, I would say, taxing, and it's mentally fatigue. I mean, you get mentally tired. So I think that's one thing that we should always follow. So that leads me to another question: that what do you think as an author, especially as you're saying that people stop marketing, right? That they write a book and then they do it. So what do you think? What are the things that authors should never, compromise with, or I would just simply say that what are the do's and don'ts for authors, that like the things that they must do and the things that they should not do?
Well, other than beyond writing a great book, that's step one. You have to write a really good book, and to write a really good book, you need editing help. So That's a must.
Yeah.
It's not cheap, it's not inexpensive, and that's a hard thing for a lot of young folks starting out, especially. But you got to find a way to get that help. And then once you're ready to start trying to convince people to buy your book, you need to make sure that it looks like a professional thing. So you need a really good cover. And most of us are not graphic designers. And even if we are, we don't necessarily understand what sells a book, what kind of covers sell a book. So you need a professional to do that for you. And then you need excellent copy to put up on Amazon with your book. Because you want, as people think about when you scroll Amazon looking for something to read, that each book has about a second and a half to get your attention. And if it doesn't do it in that time, you're on to the next book. So you have to have a cover that grabs their attention enough that they'll start to read your blurb. And then the blurb has to convince them that I'm going to get the kind of experience I want from this book because I'm a fan of that genre. Or, no, this isn't for me. And that's important. It's okay if somebody looks at your stuff and says, it's not for me, because if your book ends up in the wrong hands, if my book ends up in the hands of a big romance fan, I'm going to get a 1-star review. And that's killer. So, but you got to, when you're starting to market, you got to make sure that you have a professional product to present to the world and that it's going to grab their attention right from the start.
Yeah, I think this is a great list. And I would just add that a lot of people say that don't judge the book by its cover, but I think the cover is everything. It is like book is always judged by its cover. So we need to have a great cover so to grab the attention.
And also it should scream what your genre is. My books, somebody should look at my cover and say, oh man, that's going to be really an intriguing mystery crime thriller to read. Because if they don't feel that, they might buy it for some other reason. Well, I'll give you an example. I had a woman write me once and she was disappointed because for some reason she thought my books were like 19th century historical fiction, old Western style books, cowboys, Indians, and that sort of thing. And, well, that was a death sentence in her mind. She did not like my book because it wasn't what she was looking for. And somehow what I had up there conveyed the wrong message to her. So that's what you have to really focus on, is making sure that in that couple of seconds you have to grab somebody's attention, they're going to understand exactly what they're going to get by reading your book.
Yeah, definitely. This is a very, very important part that we need to always consider, especially as an author. We need to keep it in mind that, we need to have the right audience. And I've suffered also this a lot, because if like my book has a different kind of audience, not everyone, it doesn't speak to everyone. And if it goes into wrong hands, you're gonna get like completely different reviews, and which you think, oh my God, I never thought of this, because of course that's not your field, or that's not something that we're thinking of. So this is again a very big learning, at least for me, that you need to actually find your right audience. Otherwise, it's not gonna help. Yeah.
Right, and I went to a talk once where they were talking about book covers and how to attract readers, and the speaker was saying that every now and then he'll work with an author, because he helps authors figure this out. He'll work with an author that will argue, well, I don't want my cover to look like every other thriller cover. He wrote thrillers. But you do want it to look like every other thriller cover. Because you want the reader to instantaneously know that this is a thriller book. You don't want to put flowers on the front, for example. It's not going to work.
Yes, anyway. Absolutely. So you mentioned one very important thing, that the reviews on the book, and it plays very important part, especially if you have good reviews, if you have good number of reviews on Amazon, then your book is kind of have chances to land in the right audience or with the right readers. But what are some tips and tricks would you share to gain more reviews on your book?
Well, yeah. First, I'll back up and agree with you. It's very important. It's what's the term for that? Social approval. It taps into the psychology of people that are looking for that next book to read. If you're scrolling and you think, I might like that book. Oh, look, it's only got 3 reviews. Nobody else likes this book. Well, I'm not going to get it. I'll find one with more reviews. But if it's got 500 reviews, and the rating, the overall average rating is good, then that tells you, okay, well, this isn't horrible. I'm going to give it a chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, then the trick is, how do you get those reviews?
Yeah.
And I'm working at that.
Mhm.
My first book, when I put it out there, got 100 reviews, and okay, well, that's the best I could do. But I've gotten a lot more since then. But I of course, I look up other authors, and they've got 20,000 reviews on a book. I'd love to get to that. You have to. There's various ways you can do this. I've participated in several book giveaves. Just recently, I was lucky enough to get a BookBub featured deal, which is they're kind of hard to get, but it's BookBub has a huge stable of readers that are looking for books all the time. And so I said, okay, I'll give my book away in hopes that they'll read it and review it, and then buy the rest of the books in the series. And in 5 days' time, I had 18,000 reviews, which is about average for a featured deal. Not reviews, I'm sorry, downloads. 18,000 people downloaded my book, and the reviews have started to climb. So, in the past week or so, I've gained another 100 reviews. I'm up to, I don't know, 500 or something at this point.
Wow.
But it's going to continue to grow. And so that's one thing, is to don't be shy, don't be afraid to give your book away periodically, especially if you have a series going, to try to garner those reviews and garner that social approval, so that other people later on, when you're not giving it away for free, are going to think it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, is you gain reviews by appealing to your followers. I mentioned I have several thousand followers that I send emails to. And from those followers, I recruit a list of advanced readers. And so I've got a book coming out next February 4th. And just a couple of days ago, I sent out copies to all the advanced readers. I've got about 50 of them. And hopefully most of them, it'd be great if it was all of them, and it never is, will post a review by the launch day, February 4th. So right when that book hits the public, it's already got 10, 20, 30, 40 reviews. And people are going to, okay, I can check this book out.
Yeah, I think that's a very good strategy, that, getting the reviews before publishing it or before launching it. So this will actually give, again, social approval, that people like saying that this is the book that they want to read.
Well, right. And one trick you can try that works well, I think, is, most of the sales are digital. So my launch, when I say the book launches on February 4th, it's the digital book that officially launches on February 4th. If you, without telling anybody, upload and release your paperback version a couple of weeks before that, then people can start leaving reviews. Your advanced readers can leave reviews right away. If you don't do that, then they have to wait until February 4th, and some of them forget, so that's another little trick that you can try to make sure that you increase the number.
Yeah, that's really good trick. One thing you mentioned is that BookBub. BookBub is a platform that, it just runs a lot of feature deals or something. But to me, somehow it didn't work. I don't know. A lot of people, talk about it. So I don't know what is exactly something maybe I did wrong. Or
did you advertise? Did you do a paid advertisement on BookBub, or was it a BookBub featured deal?
Yeah, it was just the paid advertisements.
I've done paid advertisements with BookBub. They didn't work for me either. I was very disappointed in the results. I didn't get the money back that I spent on them.
Yeah.
It's the BookBub featured deal that you apply for that, and and you can say, okay, I'm going to give my book away, or I'm going to reduce the price to 99 cents.
Okay.
And if they accept you for that, then when they send out their emails on those days, your book's right there at the top, and they've got enough readers that you'll get a lot of downloads or sales.
Okay. Oh, that's a great tip. But how do you apply for the feature? I mean, do you need to pay or something, or it's free?
No, it's free to apply. You can do it right on your BookBub dashboard. It'll show you how to do it. It's not hard.
Oh, that's wonderful, because it didn't work, and I have heard so much about BookBub, and it worked for them. And it's like, I don't know why. I don't know what I did wrong, but it didn't work for me.
Well, I was applying for featured deals and saying I'll lower the price to 99 cents, and I was never accepted. And then I talked to an author at the Author Nation conference in Las Vegas last fall, and he said, "Well, no, apply for the free ones because it's easier, and most people like free better than paying even 99 cents. And then also in the comments box, be sure and put a pitch in there about your book that will tell BookBub why people would want to download the book. And since then, I'm 2 for 2 on getting the feature deal.
Oh, that's a good idea. I will try now the feature deal. So that's I hope it works for me. So, anyways, yeah, go ahead. So you were saying something?
Oh, I was just going to say that they're not cheap. Those featured deals. Mine was around $500 for the free one, but I got 18,000 downloads, and I've been following my revenue through Vinci Books since that happened, and it's skyrocketed. I'm not still making a ton of money on it, but I'm not losing money either anymore. And, it made a huge impact on book sales because people read that book and then started buying other books in the series. Also, I'm in KU, Kindle Unlimited, so I was getting credit for all the page reads. And it went way up as well with these 18,000 people downloading the book. So it's a great deal if you get it. Yeah. And the other thing is, if you don't get it, don't despair. Just apply again next month. Just keep at it.
Oh, yeah, that's a great, that's really a great tip. Anyways, yeah, we are almost end of the show. So I think before I actually finish this or end the show, what one piece of advice would you like to give to authors today to don't get like disheartened by the marketing and keep doing something? What one tip like they can do it to market their books like in a better way?
One piece of advice. I've already given the big one. That is, you realize you're in it for the long haul. And I think beyond that is have confidence in your work. Don't pay too much attention to what people are saying on reviews, especially the bad ones. You just ignore those. If you know you've written your best book possible, then be confident that you've done the best you can, and it's a good book that some people are going to like and that others aren't, and just keep going.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that is very important, that you filter out the noise and focus on the work.
Exactly.
That's a great advice.
Right.
And what is the best way that people can reach out to you?
Well, the most direct way would be just to email me.
Okay.
Email address is on the website, but it's Jeff Kerr at jeffreykerrauthor.com. And then, there's a contact page on my website as well. And then in my books, I usually have the back matter of the books. There's usually a way to do that. So, but the main thing is the email address or the website.
Okay, so that's great.
I will write back. I promise I will write back.
That's wonderful. So there's a ticker going on this screen. So people who are watching us, please reach out if you want on the Jeffery Kerr author.com, and definitely he will reply. And there's of course. That how to publish a book, you have lots of good, valuable advice for the young authors, especially the first one. They always need some guidance. So even those who are writing second or third time, it's always good to have some mentor.
So many people have helped me with advice, and I'm happy to turn around and try to help other folks with what I know.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us and sharing these wonderful tips and advice. These are definitely brilliant, and I learned a lot, and I'm sure audience must have learned a lot. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Amber. Thank you for having me.
And thanks to all those who have been listening to us or who've been watching or sharing the comments, especially Valerie, who's been sharing the comments. And thanks to Valerie for connecting us. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you.